Okay guys, my name is Brittany Netherton and I'm an instructional technologist here. So if you ever have Moodle issues, you may have seen my name on some emails. I may have solved some problems for you. Today we're going to talk about using Google to jumpstart your research. So I am a librarian by trade, didn't always work in the IT field, and so research is one of those things that I'm really passionate about, and I really enjoy teaching some methods that you can use to really make your research a little bit easier on you. So that's how we're going to get started. How many times have you known about a paper or presentation for weeks ahead of time, but you just couldn't figure out where to begin your research? Like most people, I think, have experienced that at one point or another. It can be a little overwhelming, especially when you have work, other classes, sports, social events, and things that, quite frankly, seem a little bit more fun than doing your research. However, there are ways to start thinking about your research using tools that you're probably already using in your everyday life. So what if I told you that you can jumpstart your research by conducting a simple Google search from your mobile device? Would that be interesting to you?
Absolutely.
Probably, because you're here. So what if I told you that Wikipedia, despite what your instructors say, can be a useful tool when you're not sure where to begin your research? That's where we are going to start today. We're going to cover the following. We'll briefly discuss the difference between a research topic and a research question. And then we'll look into using Google Images to begin our research. And we'll also take a look at how to use Wikipedia for academic purposes. So go ahead and get out your mobile devices and follow along with me. If you have a computer or a tablet or a phone that you'd like to use, I will not yell at you for using those during this workshop. I'll have a poll open later in the presentation, so if you want to contribute to that, and I sincerely hope that you do, otherwise it's going to be about 30 seconds of dead silence. Go ahead and text this down here. I don't know if you can see it in the back. It's Brittany. I also wrote it on that board over there. Brittany Neth 191. If you text that to 37607, that will put you into my poll, but you'll also be able to access it through a browser if you prefer to do that. And that will be a little bit later in the presentation. So I'll give you a couple seconds to get that written down before we go any further. Okay, so academic research relies on keyword searches. So let's talk about that word, keyword. What does it mean? Can anybody just throw out an idea of what keyword itself is insinuating?
Like those ding words that'll drive your search.
Exactly. So it's a word that identifies the specific information that you need. Any library database you use is going to give you results only after you insert keywords telling it what you're looking for. So you don't search incomplete sentences when you're doing academic research. You don't need words like a, an, the. You don't need question words like where, how, and why. You only need words that hold meaning to your topic. And sometimes just finding those keywords is one of the hardest parts of the research process. Sometimes the topics that we're given in classes are so broad, it's really difficult to figure out what to focus on. The thing is, what you're researching shouldn't always be broad. Many students confuse their overall topic, which is usually very broad, and their research question, which should be more narrow. This is where many students make the process more difficult than it needs to be. Your research question should be a legitimate question. So let's start with our topic, and for this purpose I've chosen animal shelters because it's very easy to illustrate what I'm talking about with this topic. So we'll start with animal shelters and we'll see if we can use the tools at hand to gather our keywords and form a question. You should have a colorful handout that doesn't look identical to this but contains the same process. Go ahead and grab that because we'll be writing on it. In the first box, write our overall research topic, animal shelters. And this is what the Google image search looks like if we search for animal shelter. What are some of the words that come to mind when you see these images. And you can look on your screen, you can look on my screen, but just shout out words that come to mind for you.
Adoption.
Adoption.
Sad.
Sad. Sad is even, you'll notice that the Google Images has already grouped up some of the topics for you. So you've got volunteer over there, you have sad. Others?
Puppies.
Puppies. Kittens. Lots of puppies and kittens. If you scroll on down, maybe you'll notice that some of these are very clean, they're very fluffy. You can tell that they've had a photographer come in and take good pictures that hopefully will get the animals adopted. But then you see some, like this one, that look a little sad, a little crowded, a little dingy.
Abuse.
Abuse, that's a big one that comes to mind. How many of these animals have been neglected? What is their welfare like when you see something like this, where this man is basically dragging the dog down the path? There are a lot of different ways that you can go with this, and just looking at these images sometimes is more helpful in thinking of words you can use than brainstorming on your own or reading a text. So now is the time when you can put this texting to use. Go ahead and send in any of those words that we just mentioned. You can text them. If you've already texted Brittany Neff 191, you can just text the word to that same thread, or you can go online. I see a few of you typing away, so I'm going to give you some more time. Sometimes there's a little bit of a gap. So we've got abuse popping up here. If you send one and it doesn't come up immediately, sometimes there's a little bit of a delay. And as you see the words that other people are saying, pick out some of those for yourself and write them down on your worksheet, just to have them in mind, because we're going to go to something else and you'll need to cross-reference them at the end. So we've got abuse, kittens, neglect, and I have a feeling that a couple more are going to roll in. We're going to go on and leave Google Images behind and move over to Wikipedia. So raise your hand if a teacher has ever told you that you can't use Wikipedia for an assignment. Nearly everybody in this room just raised their hand. What they probably mean to say is that Wikipedia should not show up in your references list. However, Wikipedia can be a fantastic resource to you in the early stages of your research. It's the perfect tool for brainstorming because everything is linked together and all the information that you need is at your fingertips. And one of the most useful features of Wikipedia is the layout. How many of you can usually find what you need from a Wikipedia article? Why do you think that is? That's because they've standardized the layout. So no matter if you're looking at an article about horse racing or an article about the television show Game of Thrones, you'll be looking at articles that are organized similarly, and that makes all the difference. So that's on purpose, and it makes the tool very easy to read and use. So go ahead and on your mobile device, go to Wikipedia and search for animal shelter. And here's what you're going to find. In a Wikipedia article, terms that are considered important are generally either in bold or they're hyperlinked to other articles or outside resources. In the animal shelter article, we see that animal shelter and pound are in bold, while no-kill shelters and animal pounds are hyperlinked. As you read through the remainder of the article, other bold and hyperlinked words will appear, and any of those words have the potential to be keywords for your search. The content section of a Wikipedia article will contain headings that help you navigate. So this is especially helpful if you're looking at an article that contains a lot of information, such as articles for television shows, for book series, for historical events. For the animal shelter article, you'll notice headings that specify information for various countries. So knowing that and seeing that might make you think, well, maybe you should have your research question focusing on a specific area of the world. All of these pieces of information that you can glean just by looking will help you to kind of narrow down what you want to focus on. The next area you encounter with this article is the See Also area. This provides you with related terms that you may not have thought about originally. You can see here, maybe you've never heard of the second bullet point, which says black dog bias. So you might say, what is that? Go in and click on it and find out that black dogs are less likely to be adopted from animal shelters. That may be something that you find interesting that you want to pursue. It might also lead you elsewhere. Any of these links can be clicked on, and then you can find even more information than you originally started with. You don't have to stop after clicking one hyperlink either. It's really easy on the internet to sort of fall down the rabbit hole and click a link and then find another link you want to click, and then suddenly you've been through 10 different articles. And that's perfectly okay. A lot of people think that research should be something that is instantaneous. I know in our world today we're used to getting the information that we want as quickly as possible. But if you go through 10 articles to find something that really sort of grabs your attention and makes the research fun for you, that's absolutely fine, and you should definitely do that. As long as it still falls under the purview of what you've been assigned, that's perfectly acceptable research. You will also notice that most Wikipedia articles have a reference list near the bottom. And admittedly, these may not always be functional. I can't tell you how many times I click on one of these and it goes to a web page that no longer exists. The link is broken. It's old research that doesn't hold up anymore. But this is where your librarians come in handy. You could bring any of us one of these and say, is there somewhere else I can get this information? And we're there to help you with that. Additionally, you might find an article referenced in this section that answers a question that you yourself were interested in or wanted to pursue further. And that's great too, because you should use the resources that are there for you. So if you find this question that another researcher answered and it really interests you and you want to run with it, go for it. And the benefit to that is there's somebody else who's already done the same research that you're doing, and you can pull from what they learned and build onto it. The last thing that you might find in Wikipedia is a category section at the very, very bottom of the article, almost like a footer. And that links to a few other locations within Wikipedia that your current article might belong. So here you can see that abandoned animals and vaccination-related organizations are suggested. Clicking on one of these categories will take you to a page that is absolutely full of hyperlinks that can be used as keywords, or again, they can be used as further investigation into your topic. So, here's an example of some of the keywords that you might have selected from each of these sources. You'll see some of the ones over here that we talked about with the Google Images that came up on our screen. Sad, cruel, cats and dogs, crowded, clean or dirty. And then here are some of the keywords that you could have pulled from the Wikipedia article that we looked at. No kill, euthanasia, Animal Protection Act of 2000, trap, neuter, release programs, pound, animal welfare, and abandoned animals. Those are all words that were contained within that Wikipedia article. This is where the research gets to the experimental phase, and I think it's the fun phase, and you have to do a few things at this point. You need to stop and consider all of your words and how they relate to one another. So take a look at the words that you texted in to us, and take a look at the words that you wrote down on your page. And see, does anything jump out at you? You can group certain words together and go into a library database and just try them out and see what you get. And you may have to do this a few times to get something that works for you. Research isn't something that happens all at once. It's a process, and it's very circular, and it can get very messy, but That's the fun of it, and that's the important part of it. So don't get discouraged if it's not happening as quickly as you would like, because at some point you'll find a combination that works. So for me, the things that stand out here are that most of our images were of cats and dogs, and several of them seem to highlight overcrowding. Let's think about what we know from real-world experience and figure out why that might be. Why do you think that most of the shelter pictures are of cats and dogs?
Those are the most common.
Those are the most common animals for people to adopt. They're also the most frequently seen stray animals. You don't very often see a gerbil or a boa constrictor running down the street because it's just not common for people to adopt those pets. But what they do is adopt cats and dogs. Maybe they accidentally have a litter of children that people can't take care of. A lot of people will release those, and then we have overcrowding of the streets. So more and more people own cats and dogs, and more cats and dogs are wild. So building on that knowledge and our Google image keywords, I start thinking, well, maybe this excess of animals is directly related to animal welfare both in the street and in the shelter. So I noticed on the United States section of our Wikipedia article that there's something called a trap, neuter, release program. So I add that to my list as well. So now my keywords are cats and dogs, crowded, animal welfare, trap, neuter, release program. What I want to do is take all of these keywords and see if they are related, see if anybody has done research on this sort of topic. And when I get into the database and I start searching for this, it may turn out that I'm completely wrong. And that's okay. It's okay to be wrong. But you have to keep powering through and keep grouping your words together to find something that sticks. So if I go to the library database, and I'm going to apologize because this is way smaller than I was anticipating, so I know you guys can't see it very well. If I go to the library database and use trap, neuter, and release as my 3 keywords at the top, I get several results. And the number 2 result leads me to believe that I'm onto something with my idea that trap, neuter, release might relate to overcrowding and animal welfare. And I'll read it for you since you can't see it, but it says costs and benefits of trap, neuter, release and euthanasia for removal of urban cats in Oahu, Hawaii. So I take that and form my research question. How do trap, neuter, release programs affect animal shelter overcrowding? That is a research question. It asks a question, it's based on our preliminary keyword building, and it will most likely have an answer. A prominent undergraduate information-seeking behavior researcher named Allison J. Head found that 74% of freshman undergraduate students struggle with selecting keywords and formulating efficient search queries once they get to college. And many of those students, when she interviewed them, said that they rely on a deeply ingrained habit of using Google and Wikipedia for their research because that was acceptable in high school. So I want you to know that you don't have to bid farewell to the things that you're accustomed to in order to do academic research at the college level. You just have to use them in a new, different context. If using Google and Wikipedia in these ways can help you get a solid footing in your research, then by all means you should use them. Just make sure that once you have your keywords, you transition into a reliable research-based platform like a library database to get your final research that's going to go on your references list. And if you ever feel stuck, you can reach out to us at the library because we are always here to help. Are there any questions about what we've covered? Does anybody have anything to add?
No, I just found it very helpful, not even being a student, because even as a post-grad, I'm looking at wanting to do research in my career field. Mm-hmm. So this was even helpful tips for me.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I know for me as a student, often the hardest part of doing my research was just figuring out how to get started. You know, I would just sit on my bed and think, I know if I could just start this, I could power through it and I could finish it, and it wouldn't be, you know, this gargantuan task that I'm being faced with. And it was always so difficult, and I didn't find out until I was in a graduate program that it's perfectly okay to just use your web surfing habits to get those ideas, you know, storming in your brain. And this is something, if you're sitting on a bus, if you're in your buddy's car, you know, you can pull up a Google image search while you're doing nothing else and already have the wheels turning in your brain and thinking of words that you can use. And, you know, sometimes the best ideas just come to you out of the blue. Yeah.
And I just want to log what you said, because I do teach in the 102 class, the English 102 class. It is okay to go to Wikipedia. In fact, it's a good idea to go there first and get ideas, and then, you know, branch out from there. Not to cite, but to get your ideas.
Right.
But I hadn't thought about doing the images, and I think that's a great place to start as well. So, yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
on the same page.
Great. That is excellent to hear. And I do think that, you know, sometimes seeing a picture, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And in this case, that is definitely true, because you're going to get all sorts of, you know, it's going to span the spectrum. And maybe in your mind, when you got your research topic for animal shelters, you were just thinking of, you know, the happiness that goes along with it, giving a puppy a new home, and, you know, they take care of them, and you have no-kill shelters, but you don't realize that that only applies up to a certain point, and then, you know, you have to at some point clear out. So being able to get this broad spectrum of results is very helpful. Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, that went very quickly, but I hope you all found it helpful. And my information is up here on the slide, so if you need anything or have questions after, just shoot me an email. My office is downstairs in 118, which is right next to the library desk, and you can just pop by anytime. And I've got my Allison J. Head reference here, if anybody's interested. And we have recorded this, so we'll have that up somewhere within the next week that you can access if you want to share it or if you want to reference it. Thank you.
Thank you.